What's going on, everyone? So sharpshooter Luke Kennard is still available via free agency, and the San Antonio Spurs are apparently interested in Luke Kennard. Now, I think he makes a ton of sense for the San Antonio Spurs. We'll touch on that here in a moment. But to kind of just go over Luke Kennard and what he provides and what he is as a player, he is 28 years old, 6'5", 206. He doesn't really provide much outside of shooting the basketball. He's not really a great defensive player. He's not really this great rebounder. He can make plays and kind of continue, with the hockey assist and keep pushing the ball along. I do think he's a guy that would fit into the San Antonio system rather nicely. He also is a guy that at this point is going to be able to be had for incredibly cheap. He's a guy that's you're not going to have to break the bank for. And he's one of the best just shooters by percentage in the NBA. This is a guy that last year shot 45% from three-point range, and he's a career 44% three-point shooter. So it's not one of those things where, it's like he's this lights-out, one-year type three-point shooter, and that's all he provided. No, like this is something that he's known and capable of doing year in and year out. And him slotted alongside guys like a Chris Paul, a Victor Wembanyama. Like, you want shooting in that area, and there's very few that shoot to the level in which Luke Kennard does. Again, 45% would be fantastic. But again, he's not a guy that's going to give you much else on the basketball court, which I don't think is a big problem, right? Because, you look at the San Antonio Spurs. And again, you have Victor Wembanyama and you have Chris Paul now. Chris Paul and Victor, what do you want around them? You want guys that can catch and shoot. You want guys that can knock down the three ball, right? You want skilled guys, obviously, too. But to slot a guy like a Luke Kennard on the court with these two, I just think would do wonders. And just being able to suck in the defense and then kick out to the open shooter, and then him and his efficiency from the three-point range, I just think would be great for the Spurs. But also, Luke Kennard is not a guy that's going to take away from anybody, right? That's something that I've talked about with these players that the Spurs have talked about. You got guys like, Stephon Castle and, Devin Vassell, and you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're taking away from them and their growth and their opportunity, right? Luke Kennard's not a guy that needs the basketball in his hands. Luke Kennard is not a guy that is going to demand you run plays and you're going to have to run a bunch of sets for and do all this stuff, right? He's a guy that's just going to kind of come in, fit in, play the role that is asked of him as this movement off-ball shooter, and a guy that can continue to push the pace and continue to move the basketball in Spurs offensive systems, right? Now, I know every time you talk about a guy, that potentially could be a two guard or anything like that, people always go like, oh, yeah, but he's going to take away minutes from, Vassell and Castle and guys like that. I don't really see that, right? Like, again, you're not going to be playing Vassell and Castle 40-plus minutes a game, or at least you shouldn't be, right? Now, I do think that they're going to play significant minutes, but a guy like Luke Kennard that can play and slot alongside those guys even at times, certain matchups, but also to kind of just be a guy that can come in and fill in for, 10, 15 minutes a game. You bringing in a guy like a Luke Kennard, he's not coming in to play 30 minutes a night. He's not a guy coming in to play this huge, massive role. He's a guy coming in that has a very specific skill that you can acquire for cheap that can actually impact and would be a nice fit alongside a Chris Paul, even a Harrison Barnes, even a Victor Wembanyama. Also, now, what other moves do the Spurs do, if any, later on down the line, right? Like, do they look to unload and, make a move or a push? They still are linked to Lauri Markkanen as a potential destination. It has cooled down a little bit in that front, but the Spurs still could potentially make a push. What are they going to do with Keldon Johnson? There's been a lot of just kind of rumors circulating really the last year and a half about them potentially trading Keldon Johnson. He's probably coming off the bench and is going to be a real piece like that. I do think bringing in Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes, right? Those are two vet guys that I do think could really help in the field of just development and growth for these guys. Luke Kennard can be another one of those pieces, right? He's 28. He's not like Chris Paul, where Chris Paul is 38. But he is still a vet that's been in the league several years, that has been on quality teams, from the Memphis Grizzlies, recently just played on the Clippers. So he's a guy that understands and plays and buys into the role that is asked of him, right? So he's another just kind of veteran guy you can add in for cheap that has a skill set that is very needed in today's NBA, right? Like, you're talking about a skill set that is not, that you can't have too much of in the realm of three-point shooting. Obviously, you want guys that can be as versatile as possible, but that's what you have the young guys for, right? Bringing in a guy like a Luke Kennard, I think, could do wonders for just, again, the young guys, the Vassell's, the Castles of the world that can now have that guy that can help them develop in their shooting, that can help them kind of, maybe increase their shooting percentage and their three-point percentage, just to have that. And, shooting is contagious. You see it all the time in the NBA, right? You'll see a team that just, they can't buy a three to save their lives, and then that guy just hits one, and then all of a sudden, it's just like, when it rains, it pours, and everyone just starts hitting them. Or, like, out the gate, you'll see it sometimes, where, like, one guy will go, like, 3 of 3 from 3 to start the game, and then all of a sudden, you look up, and they're, like, 11 of 14, and you're just like, God, these guys are shooting the lights out. And a lot of that leads to that skilled shooter, right? A guy that can get hot, a guy that can knock down several threes. So, to me, if you can bring in a guy like Luke Kennard, you're not asking him to take 10 threes a game or anything like that. You're not asking him to play a big, significant role. But he's a guy that I think can be another just kind of vet, another adult in the room that has multiple years of experience, that has had some levels of success in at being the skilled player that he is. He hasn't been this, like, incredible journeyman, right? Like, he's a guy that, he played for Detroit for several seasons, then he played with the Clippers for several seasons, and then played with Memphis for several seasons, right? So he's a guy that, it's not, like, you'll see some guys and it's like, oh, he's been on like 12 teams in, 5 years. And it's like, how much can he provide? It's like, no, like, this is a guy that basically is double digits for his career, for a Spurs team that's trying to make a push and actually be a real team in this league, right? And I just think Luke Kennard is a guy that, can be another piece that you add to the cog, that can not only provide a skill that is necessary and needed, can help be a development guy, not in the sense of him being development. At 28, how much more upside does he have to go? But I also think he's a guy that, again, doesn't take away from the players that you're really trying to highlight, the players you're really trying to focus on. He is, in many ways, a Spurs guy, right? He understands his role. He plays his role to the best of his ability. He's a guy that's not going to come in and be disruptive. He's going to be a locker room guy. He's a guy that can play and be within Pop's system, right? The movement offense, the motion offense, and then him being able to continue to make the play, continue to make the pass. Instead, you look at last year, he was 11-3, and will be nice to round up to 4. Right, so 11 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. I don't think is very bad, right? That's not a bad position to be in if you're the San Antonio Spurs, getting a player like that basically can get you 11 plus. And I mean, he's even had years like with Detroit. Granted, he played a lot more. He was playing 33 minutes a game, but gave you 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. Right? And again, he was more of a focal point, more of a highlighted role. But this is a guy that on volume, again, shoots 45%. He's, for his career, has averaged 5 3-point attempts per game. Right? Last year, he shot 6.1 attempts and shot 45%. Imagine if you had that on the Spurs this year. Imagine if you had Victor Wembanyama that you could dump the ball down to, and you have a shooter such as Luke Kennard out on the perimeter that you can just kick it out and he can knock down the open shot. Think about, Chris Paul and him kind of wheeling and dealing and doing his thing and, making plays and facilitating and setting up Victor and setting these guys up. But then he always has that kick out guy in Luke Kennard that he could kick it out to. I think that Luke Kennard is a perfect kind of fit to this Spurs team. I think he's a guy that makes a ton of sense off the bench in that, again, that specialty role. You're not looking for him to play 40 minutes a game. You're not looking for him to be this huge factor. And, I mean, realistically, the Spurs aren't a team that's trying to go and make a big push for a championship, right? they're patient. Even if Victor Wembanyama goes and he becomes, the clear-cut #1 player in the league, there's still a lot of questions about their youth and their age and stuff like that. But it's about bringing in skill guys that can help be mentors and help develop and grow the guys that you have plans for your future, right? Chris Paul and his ability to help Stephon Castle be able to properly make plays and read the court on the level of a point guard. And then to add in a guy like a Luke Kennard who can also help Stephon Castle with his shooting and kind of help him develop a shot. Same thing with, with Vassell, right? You get a guy in Luke Kennard who can help him and even if he improves three-point shooting just marginally, right? Like that's huge for the Spurs. And then, you add in Chris Paul, who, again, can help him kind of facilitate better and see the court differently. And, it's about bringing those guys. Like, what are the players that we have, and what are things that they all could work on? Playmaking, seeing the basketball court, ability to score, and shooting the basketball, right? Defense, 3-and-D, bring in, winners, championship DNA, Harrison Barnes, like all of those things. And you compile those. And that's how you usually get a recipe for success, especially with the young guys. Now, all of a sudden, you see Vassell and you see Castle starting to take real strides here. I'm not saying out the gate, but like as the season progresses, or maybe even it's next season. And it's like, I just think Kennard makes sense from just a helping in development standpoint to a helping, provide some three-point shooting and play a specific role in need and fits what the Spurs are trying to do as a basketball team. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Fast question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think, he makes a ton of sense? He's a guy that can absolutely knock it down. He's a guy that can shoot the basketball. He fits into, what the Spurs are doing. He's not going to take away from guys, right? Or do you think, no, there's better options out there? Would you rather go, kind of the younger route, like a development guy? My only, thing about, a development guy is that, you already have plenty of those, right? At some point, you need to start kind of bringing in the guys that kind of help, right? And I think Kennard could be one of those guys. But anyway, again, how you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Lets me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate